So as most of you guys probably know by now, I mean, it's no real secret that this is the case. You can literally watch a Collingwood football game and the glazing by the commentators is like next level on Nick Daicos. It's no secret that Nick Daicos is Collingwood's most important player by far. But then the case for the second most important player is a question among fans. A lot of people would say Darcy Moore, even though a fucking fly or an under-13s footballer could probably beat him on a one-on-one marking contest this year. Some other people might say Scott Pendlebury, who at this rate might try and outbeat Tom Brady and play till he's 50 years old. But there is one player that I think is so important to Collingwood that no one talks about besides maybe Collingwood fans, who I genuinely believe completely changes their team. With Collingwood's rise in 2022 with a record of 16-6, it was very clear that only one thing was missing for them, and that was a key forward. Collingwood would go on to sign in the 2022 off-season contending Brisbane Lions player and their third option key forward, Dan McStay, to become their first option. Doing so, Collingwood would then improve their record to 18-5 as a team, as they had a genuine option to kick to down forward who could not only take a mark, but bring the ball down to small forwards such as Jack Ginnivan, Bobby Hill, and Jamie Elliott. Gaining Dan McStay would also steal an option from the contending team, the Brisbane Lions, who would semi-struggle at times with Eric Hipwood being their number one option when Danaher would go into the ruck. Collingwood would then coincidentally play the Brisbane Lions in the 2023 Grand Final. In the 2024 off-season, Dan McStay would suffer a knee injury that a lot of people actually said would put him out for the whole entire 2024. With no Dan McStay, no key forward, no marking option, and no player to bring the ball down for all of their small forwards, Collingwood would go from a record of 18-5 as a team to 8-10. They would lose double the games that they would go on to lose in the previous year and would only come out to win 8 extra games, leaving them out of the finals completely and having them in like 12th position, which is a major drop-off from the first position they were last year and obviously the premiership they eventually went on to win. Dan McStay would actually come back from his injury, giving Collingwood fans the faintest bit of hope that they could go on to make finals, as they now have a key forward and someone to kick to. And boy oh boy were they right, because Dan McStay would come back and would definitely give them something to look forward to. Again, he would return in round 19 against Hawthorn, where despite losing by fucking 66 points, Dan McStay would have a pretty good comeback game where he did obviously kick a goal. Since that Collingwood game, losing to Hawthorn by 66 points, Collingwood would go 3-1, with their only loss being by the Sydney Swans by 3 points. Not just that, Carlton obviously won the other day with a ton of injuries. A lot of people didn't expect them to beat West Coast, but they did. Let's just say Collingwood did manage to win that game over Sydney instead of losing by 3. And Carlton, did lose that game against West Coast that a lot of people thought they were going to. Collingwood would right now be in the 8 or just off it by percentage and a massive chance to return. Realistically, the Collingwood Football Club are 8-10 without Dan McStay this year. With Dan McStay, if we're not going to count the Hawthorn game because obviously they still had a ton of injuries and McStay wasn't back to his ability, if we're going to count McStay being healthy from round 20 and onwards, the Collingwood Football Club are 3-1, with the only loss they have being by 3 points. This guy completely changes their team. He not only creates a massive option for all of their midfielders to kick to, whether that's on a marking contest in a pack or on a lead, but this guy genuinely will bring the ball down 9 out of 10 times. And you can see players like Lachie Schultz, who some people refer to as the worst trade for Collingwood in their history. You can see players like Lachie Schultz literally double as what they were previously without Dan McStay. Now that Lachie Schultz has an option to rove from and, an option to take some marking pressure off him, he's been able to genuinely increase his impact so much. I mean, we literally saw what he just did against the Brisbane Lions, where he kicked a couple of goals, had a ton of really, really effective disposals, and genuinely looked like the leading goal kicker that he was at the Fremantle Football Club. Would Lachie Schultz have done that without Dan McStay? If Dan McStay was not there, Lachie Schultz would have had to go back to do the same thing he's had to do for like the whole entire season, and that has been a marking option for a guy who's supposed to be a small forward, but he has to play like a key forward because they just had genuinely no one there. Having Dan McStay also frees a guy like Mason Cox or Darcy Cameron to be more so that second option. Again, when there was no McStay, you had to have Mason Cox or obviously Darcy Cameron be like your number one key forward, whoever was resting down there. And the point of them being down there is supposed to be resting outside of the ruck, battle, and the only thing they're supposed to do is try and bring the ball down. But because there was no Dan McStay, they had to go and be the number one leading option. They had to try and be the number one pack option. They had to be the guy who had to try and take every single mark. But with Dan McStay being there now as well, you give Mason Cox and Darcy Cameron much more flexibility now just to really do one thing, and that's bring the ball down. Dan McStay has completely changed this Collingwood team for the better since his return. And if he can have a healthy season next year, which again, touch wood for him and the Collingwood Football Club, he does do, I can see Collingwood not only jumping back in the 8, but probably being back in the 4 in no time. I mean, if the last 4 weeks are anything to go off, it is very, very obvious that this team looks completely different. It is way better. It functions better. And the whole system changes when Craig McRae actually has someone down there. Again, this obviously started with the Richmond Football Club in 2017 when Richmond forever changed the game. They will always be known as the team that not only changed the game but won 3 premierships off it. Again, they had legitimately one key forward for that 2017 year, which was Jack Riewoldt, and they had a bunch of other mid-sized players who would just bring the ball down to guys like Rioli, Castagna, Butler, and Bolton. The same thing would happen in 2019. They would add another key forward in Tom Lynch, but the same goal was there, to just play your role, bring the ball down for all the small players, Kane Lambert as well, Josh Caddy, the medium-sized guy, Jacob Townsend in previous years. All of these guys, their whole entire goal was to just to rove off these bigger blokes and kick goals. Again, we not only saw this carry on after Richmond's success with Collingwood, Craig McRae coming from the Tigers, adapting their game style and changing it a little bit. Obviously, doing the same thing that Richmond did with Jack Riewoldt in 2017, but they did it with Dan McStay. And now you see it continuing to carry on with the Hawthorn Football Club, having Marbia Chol down there, pretty much bringing the ball down and having all these small players like Ginnivan, the Wizard, etc., bring the ball down for them, and they can crumb and go on to kick these goals. The Richmond Football Club changed the AFL when they created that new, really, really fast-paced game style that included a bunch of small forwards. Craig McRae was a part of that. Craig McRae implemented it on at Collingwood, and now you can see it continue to go down. And this is a very successful model, and that's why I believe Collingwood will be back at it next year, because players like Lachie Schultz will have double the season with a guy like Dan McStay bringing the ball down to him. And who knows, they might add another key forward to even take more pressure off Dan McStay next season. They could literally just go into the draft with their second round pick this year and be like, this guy is a big fucking dude who can bring the ball down. Let's get him to the team and he can add with Dan McStay. Dan McStay is arguably Collingwood's second most important player, and the stats don't lie. Ever since he's been back, Collingwood have been double the team, and players like Lachie Schultz have been double the player. Again, if you would like to leave your thoughts and opinions down below on this video, I'd very much recommend it, but also leave a like to let me know you guys enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel for all the latest sports content, all of the above, all that type of stuff. Go and subscribe to my gaming channel and my IRL/vlogging channels. Links for them will be in the description down below, and I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.